Welcome to Extracurricular. I am your co-host, Eddie Geller.
And I am your other co-host, Stephanie Vanos. I am on the school board for Orange County Public Schools, but I am here today unofficially. And always.
Always. Would it be inappropriate if I introduced you, if I just like said your name and your whole spiel? Would that be just like, that feels wrong, right? I shouldn't do that.
I mean, yeah, nah. I don't think so. It's not right.
Thank you for tuning into our podcast. Tuning in is a bit of a misnomer because you're not tuning in, you're downloading the podcast. But regardless, we're glad you're here. Please do subscribe if you have not tuned in before. Find us on Instagram, extracurricular_podcast, and rate us wherever you rate podcast. Stephanie, what can they rate us?
5 stars only.
5 stars only. Steph, we had a wonderful show today, wonderful interview. Steph, who did we interview? Whom did we interview?
I don't know whether to correct you or not, but we talked to Lee Perry. Lee Perry is a local, she wears so many hats.
A lot of hats.
Yeah.
Didn't wear a hat today.
Did not, but she has cute hair, so I understand why she did not.
It's very fair.
No, but she came and she talked about her passion for the environment and her concerns and desires to make a change when it comes to climate change, and kind of gave us a little bit of background of how she got there and also just her love of education and communication.
I think absolutely yes and to all of that. And I think for someone who's thinking about working on the climate, working on environment, thinking about really local issues and making inroads in a local way, I think this is a really great conversation because right now we are really stymied in terms of climate change on the national level, on the state level here in Florida. But how is someone like Lee thinking about working the levers and being an activist here on the local level? And I thought it was very informative, a little bit serious at times, but that's okay. Sometimes we can be serious. So she was just great to talk to, and I'm so glad she came on the pod. And you were on her pod a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, she has the podcast called Organizing to Victory, and we had a lot of fun. It was a very casual conversation, talked about some, just some background information that I don't always share with people, just sort of personal information. It was a fun time. She has a great setup, actually. Her podcast is set up in her garage, and she has all kinds of campaign literature, not necessarily from like political candidates, but even just from issues on the back wall of the pod kind of studio itself. So it's kind of fun.
Are you taking shots at our setup?
No, the setup is great. I love the setup. I'm just saying it was a cool space.
Would you say our setup's a little more humble?
It's a little more humble, but I like it.
Well, we're humble people.
That's true.
You had a productive week on the school board. Shall we hit a couple of things that went on in your world?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, what do you want to talk about first?
Well, we had a really long day on Tuesday. That's typically our meeting day. And so what has happened recently is they just sort of, push everything on the same day. So it ends up starting at 8:00 in the morning and ending at about 7:30 at night. So it's a lot of meeting time. I would say most people.
But you love meetings.
You know me. I love a productive meeting, that's for sure. No, but it was, and they were important meetings. But I do think it's probably, probably people are a little bit more on their game when they have a little bit of downtime in between.
Sure.
And can be a little bit more focused. But yeah, one of the issues that came up on Tuesday was actually Wear Denim Day. And so everybody wore denim to protest against victim blaming and sexual violence. It's an international, day that's recognized. Usually at the end of April, but since this was our April meeting, we did it early April, which was interesting because we also were discussing potential changes to the dress code on that day. And yeah, I just want to give a big shout out to some students who came and they shared their opinions on dress code, especially as it relates to athletics and sports. And yeah, it was interesting.
What came of the dress code? Like Talk to me about what happened.
So the district brought forth some proposals to make the dress code more restrictive. Now, requiring like no spaghetti straps. And then there was like some whole section about midriff, but if you lifted up your arms, it couldn't show this. And all I thought of was like, who is going to be administering this? Who's going to be determining whether someone's violating dress code? It just seemed like it was introducing a lot more time wasting into a process that I already think is pretty unfair. It's typically targeted to girls. It's typically targeted to people in bigger bodies, and it can also often be racially targeted as well. So already something I honestly have a problem with. I think we have issues in schools that we could be addressing, from, absenteeism to students arriving tardy to class, like literally not being in class. And instead we're focused on, kind of punishing students who show up to class but aren't wearing the thing you want them to wear. And I think my larger point is, a woman is not responsible for the way other people feel. Like if a boy's distracted, well, that's not the girl's fault. If an adult is uncomfortable, well, that's not the girl's fault. So we had a larger discussion about that. And then just separately from that, as it relates to athletics, because it makes no sense for example, girls on a cross country team to not wear, run in 90 plus degree weather in a sports bra and shorts, particularly when that is the uniform of the U.S. women's track and field team.
Mm-hmm. Which because you were on the women's track.
Correct. I currently am right now. I do that on the side for when I'm not school boarding. So
school boarding sounds like surfboarding.
It's kind of the same thing. No, but actually it did. I think there was a point in the board meeting where I'm like, it's not about trying to show off your stomach. I'm a 47-year-old woman who's had 3 kids. Like I want nobody looking at my stomach, but I often wear a sports bra and shorts when I'm out running because we live in Florida and it's hot. And that's just how people are comfortable. And let's focus on the bigger picture, was keeping people involved in sports, keeping students involved in sports, keeping girls involved in sports. That should really be the big goal, not policing what they wear when they're running hills in the neighborhood surrounding the school.
I love it. Couldn't have said it better. And I think the phrase you've used, and I want to give you a chance to say it, which is really apt, which is you just don't want to see.
Oh, I don't want to. I was like, wait, what? I don't want to see private parts or underwear.
There you go.
Like that.
Simple.
That could be the dress code. No
Boom.
private parts, no underwear. Done.
Love it.
The more words, the worse it gets.
And so, but the outcome of the meeting is.
So that was a work session. So there was no vote. The outcome is, most of the board members, I believe a majority at least, said, do not make it more restrictive, keep it as is. They weren't ready to adopt my definition, but at least I think, are preventing a more restrictive dress code, which just is a waste of time in my opinion and makes no sense and is unfair. And then also with respect to athletics, there would be a specific carve out for sports, which is amazing.
That's great.
Yeah.
And we can adopt your definition for our relationship. No private parts, no underwear. Perfect. Done.
There you go. Done. But I do, again, just want to say thank you to the students from Boone High School that came out to speak to this. I thought it was really brave. The person who spoke at public comment was amazing. She was just so articulate and so persuasive and so brave. And I just really appreciate the courage and the camaraderie and the support that the entire team, but both boys and girls were there, gave to their fellow cross-country and track members.
I love it. Students showing up. I certainly was not doing that when I was that age. So just so much respect for that. And we've had a few students on this podcast. We are big fans of student activists, students who get involved. And so we love to see it.
Yeah. And start off with an idea that you really, really care about and you're passionate about. And then you learn, oh, okay, this is how you do it. This is how you make public comment. This is where you park. This is how you fill out the card. This is where you sit. Like all of those things, they're learning because, of an issue that they care about, but now they know for the future.
Perfect. Okay. I do want to bring up one other thing. You did a video about it this week, the SAFE coordinator cuts here at OCPS. I've encouraged folks to check out the video on your page, but do you want to talk through a little bit about what that was and what you explained?
Yeah, it was, first of all, we've talked a lot about the budget. We've talked a lot about the underfunding of our public education, in addition to declining enrollment this year through factors largely out of our local school district's control. The majority of declining enrollment comes from declining birth rates, which I always say I know sounds fake, but is actually real. Mm-hmm. And some of the I'll just say idiotic immigration policies that have been passed at the federal and state level that have caused a lot of our, immigrant community to move away, move out, and not go to school. And that has really been the primary driver of the decline in student enrollment. But that, along with the underfunding, has resulted in the school district having to make some really tough decisions. And one of them was to eliminate the SAFE coordinator position in our schools. In the past, I have worked with SAFE coordinators.
What are the SAFE coordinators?
So they just help to identify students in need, whether they're having some suicidal thoughts, whether they're homeless, whether foster students, and just sort of like make sure that they are getting the services they need, kind of coordinate efforts to make sure that they are well cared for and protected, and again, getting the resources and support within the school that they need. Worked a lot with the SAFE coordinator when I volunteered at our high school's closet because she could identify students who she knew, needed to come and get some clothes, and helped us to kind of create an environment that was welcoming and fun and not stigmatizing to some of those students. So I get it. It's an important position. Unfortunately, the school district budget does not support continuing it, and so the district did make a tough decision to cut that position. And I do think it was tough. So I wanted to do a video to explain, how our SAFE coordinators are funded. They're funded through a specific allocation from the state, and currently that allocation the school district is spending about $17 million more in those safety measures, some of which are required by the state, by the way. That the state is not covering. And additionally, the mental health allocation that is received from the state is over $6 million underfunded. So, when you're underfunded, put those two together, I'm not a mathematician, but that's what, $23 million that we are, struggling to make up in the mental health area and safety area. So I'm hopeful that we can continue to partner with organizations outside of the school district to make sure that our students still have access to the services and resources they need. But it was a tough decision, and I tried to kind of explain some of the context behind it in a video. That was too long, but it required a long explanation, so...
Well, I think it's admirable that you're out there, trying as best you can to explain these things. And the reason I use the phrase trying as best you can, because these are not easy decisions, like closing schools, not things you want to do, not things if, you had a choice, or if you had the, full funding, you would choose to do these kinds of things. But you being out there and talking about it and allowing comments on your post, I think is admirable. So kudos to you. But tough news for sure.
Yeah, well, thank you. It is tough. And it's not, again, when the budget is short, people have to make decisions they don't like. Think about your own life. Your budget's short, you're having to make decisions that probably aren't ideal for your long-term, that may not be ideal for you, but you have to make them anyway. And so hopefully we can get some advocacy, and hopefully we can convince lawmakers that the funding is needed and it's important.
All right, final thing. We just got back from a Target run. Picking up some good. What is your anger level right now post Target run?
I'm glad I have the things, but it's just never my favorite.
What happened this time?
Well, I was trying to use the card. Well, as we've talked about before, they don't let you use the card anymore. So you have to pull it up on your phone, which is another reason you have to have your phone.
Yeah.
But then I tried to pull it up on my phone to get the barcode, but then they make you log in again, as if I can remember the password. So that's just annoying. But it was not as annoying as some of the times we've gone.
Yeah. The cashier, who was very nice, said you should set up a pass key. Do you know what a pass key is?
Is that like LastPass? Or is that your face?
Yeah, it can be your face.
Okay.
So there you go.
There you go. She was trying to be helpful.
She was trying to be. She was very sweet.
Yeah.
You tried to pay for all the things, including my deodorant, which you should not be paying for my deodorant. So we had a knockdown drag out fight in the middle of Target about who was going to pay for that deodorant.
Which you did. So
I did.
It was resolved.
It was resolved.
But we got a puzzle.
We did get a puzzle. I'm excited to do that tonight.
I think we're recognizing that maybe we need to spend some more time offline and, just doing some things IRL.
Well, speaking of IRL and some great IRL organizer and activists, please enjoy our interview with Lee Perry.
Welcome to Extracurricular. Today we have Lee Perry on. Hi, Lee.
Hi.
I'm so excited to have this conversation, but I am a little stressed about how to introduce you because there are so many different things you do and so many hats you wear and so many ways you are involved in our community. I don't even know how
It's annoying. It's annoying. People are like, you're a busybody. And I'm like, yeah, I am. I always have something to say about something.
But I feel like busybody kind of implies that you like don't have deep thoughts and you like don't get things done. And you are absolutely not that. You know, you are like getting things done in so many different areas. So why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about what you are up to now and what you're doing now?
Okay, so yes, I do wear so many hats, and it's annoying because you'll see me in so many different social media posts, and it's like, I don't know what this girl does, but it feels like she does everything. Like, can you share?
Yes.
But the thing is that I'm just a climate activist. I tell everyone I'm a climate activist first and foremost, more than I am some type of partisan organizer, more than I am an issue-based campaigner. I am an environmentalist, and I want to educate people about the intersectionality between climate change and all the things that the everyday person who's just trying to survive and get by cares about. And so maybe that hat looks like talking about supporting Orlando shelters and making sure that our homeless population has a place to sleep or a cooling station when it gets too hot. Or maybe it's me helping a particular candidate who's refusing special interest money in order to really talk about how money in politics is hurting our ability to hold polluters accountable, for example. Whatever it is, I find a way to be a part of it, to build within and create a foundation within that organization or issue. And then I try to educate and lead other people to grow within that space so that I can kind of take my hat and put it on someone else's head and then move on to the next thing. So that's why you see me everywhere.
Well, it sounds a lot like you are a teacher of many people.
You know, I have always wanted to be a teacher because I love kids. I realized when I was 16, my first ever job is I worked at a preschool, and I was only 16. And actually, I found out this week that the lady who hired me, who's a very close friend, she actually just passed, Jackie Ramos. She did a whole interview and the whole 9 yards, and it was my first real thing. And then when I got in the classroom with the kids, I realized that I had a special gift. The kids didn't want to feel like kids. They wanted to feel heard. They wanted to feel respected. And because I have a brain of like a second grader, I was able to resonate in a way where these kids, especially kids that had different types of learning disabilities, were able to vent and communicate to me in ways where I saw adults get really frustrated. And I just decided from a young age that I was going to apply that same approach to everyone that I meet. That maybe if you maybe hate me and you are angry at me for whatever reason, I'm just going to pretend like you want to be heard in a way that maybe I don't make you feel like you're being heard. And so I'm going to change that approach. And I have been able to disarm so many opponents on different issues because I realize that sometimes people, they just want to communicate and feel respected. And children are like our greatest teachers. So I've always respected teachers and that relationship with kids.
Well, I do want to go back to your interest in teaching, but what you said makes me want to ask, can you give an example of a time when kind of someone came at you and it felt like, you know, they didn't like you, they didn't agree with you, maybe you felt a little attacked and you were able to kind of bring the temperature down, and maybe the other person didn't agree with you, but you were able to sort of like move to more a constructive conversation?
Yeah, for sure. Oof. So many examples. First, I'll give an example of a kid that I had when I was 16. He was always throwing crazy temper tantrums and yelling and punching the floor. And I realized that he had some type of, he refused to speak, and he had some type of auditorial disability where he always had to have tags from his shirt like in his hand, and he was always rubbing them. And I remember like everyone would get so frustrated because he wouldn't speak. And so a teacher one day just like lost it and grabbed the tag from his hands and threw it out. And it was like the end of the world. This kid was like became like the Tasmanian devil and started throwing everything. And I remember running to the bathroom, cutting off the tag in my shirt and like presenting it to him like, hey, this is special. Okay, this is new. And that he started whispering in my ear and said like, hey, thank you. And I was like, your voice is so beautiful. Why don't you let other people hear how beautiful your voice is? And then he was like all shy. And after that, we became like best friends. So that was one of the experiences that inspired me. Now in this day and age, I have quite a few people in my circle who maybe don't agree with my approach to something like politics or an issue-based campaign. But I like to approach them like cut through a lot of that second wall drama and just sit down with them and say like, we both have the same interests. Whether it's someone who's against my campaign for Support Orlando Shelters, where I'm advocating for shelters in Orange County. There are quite a few people who don't want it in their backyard, and they're very vocal about it. But I approach them and I say, come out to one of our meetings. Let's talk. I want to know, what do you want in your community, and can we find a through line? Sometimes they say things like, well, I want an alligator Alcatraz for homeless people in the rural East where they're out of my face and out of my line of sight. I don't know how much of a gap I can bridge with people like that, but there have been situations where people have rallied against a shelter and then came onto our side and said, I didn't realize I was in such a toxic counter campaign to this shelter, but you showed me the way we could negotiate for more amenities if a shelter were to come into our community. And now I feel more safe approaching that idea than I did before, where I just thought there would be people like soliciting and panhandling outside my door. And I was scared for my kids to walk to school or whatever. So it's like everyone is that child who's throwing a tantrum. Mm-hmm. We just have to find that thing that can like get them to be open to sitting down and negotiating with you and like breaking through that pressure. And human beings are, for some reason, can become territorial before they become open to communicating and negotiating with one another.
I love that. But I will also say, I feel like there's a lot of people who, who do need to be understood, but also like people want to get advantages over other people and just don't. And I mean, I think you alluded to this, that just like don't want to understand and just want to have more power or have more money. And I don't know, how do you think about that to not feel like you're ever, and I'm not saying you are at all, but to never be like being naive when people are just like trying to get their own advantage, and it might come off like, oh, they need to be heard, but it's like, no, they're just trying to get what they want, like take everything they can. I mean, e.g. this entire administration, both nationally and here in Florida.
If someone is being nasty to you, it's because they're hurting inside. So there's already something there that like is not my issue. Mm-hmm. But I know that if it's already coming out and I'm seeing it upon the first few interactions upon like discussing an issue with someone, it's because they're battling something, and karma has already come and is already wreaking havoc in that person's life, right? Like, I don't need to add to it. So I think, sometimes you have to approach a situation where you have to know that for someone to be nasty, they're probably battling something even bigger than the issue that you might be fighting about. So not in a condescending way, even though they might feel condescended, you have to continue to rise to the occasion over and over and over relentlessly, right? So I can call it out on its head. There's some folks that created the Stop the Soto shelter when we were advocating for the work release center off of Cayley Avenue by the supervisors of elections office to be converted into a shelter. They lived like 5 or 10 miles away, but they were acting like it was like right next door to them. And on Facebook, they started trashing me and doing all this stuff. And I just kept saying, like, come on out. Like, we'd love to. And they started coming to our stuff. And, I think at the end of the day, they're probably battling something very dark.
Yeah.
If they feel open to putting their face on a counter campaign that is very humane and rooted in just wanting to see immediate relief for people. That's not my problem, but my problem is that they can easily get 100 people to come out and speak against an issue, so I just have to get 120 people to come out and speak for it.
Yeah.
I love that. And I see it probably a little differently, and probably more like you do, which is like we have to have a place where people want to join, where we make it safe and we make it easy for people to say, yeah, I hear what you're saying there. Maybe I don't agree with everything you're saying, but I can see your points. And if we make it, we're not, I don't know. I think a lot of the issues you speak about, they're love-filled campaigns. They're not hate-filled campaigns. And part of that is just bringing people in, because honestly, in order to see the progress, I think that you want to see, the answer is like getting more people to agree with you, not turning people off.
And most people are driven by some type of fear or some type of impact in their lives, right? So I'm running the Save Split Oak Forest campaign. A lot of the people, the individual residents, not the corporations or mega developers who have been like fighting us with a counter campaign, but I'm talking about the people. A lot of them are upset because they're spending 3 hours away from their family stuck on Narcoossee trying to get to work, because 20 years before they ever decided to move to Florida, somebody made a decision to continue to sprawl out into the rural East without having the money or the resources to invest in infrastructure to make sure that person's commute will never be 100% car dependent only, right? And so the mistakes of generations before they even moved here metastasize themselves into their hatred for the environmentalists that are just trying to protect like the conservation land they're also paying for. And so you have to, like, we're lucky in all the things that I do, I'm open to being proven wrong. Just like with climate change.
I love that.
I want to be proven wrong, but the data's on our side, right? You cannot dispute that like almost every single endemic species to Florida is almost extinct. You can't dispute that. And when it's to a point where it's also our large like keystone species like the manatee, that means that ecosystems have been suffering for a long time and our policies haven't caught up at all. So like that's a symptom to the fact that we're not growing responsibly. And we have to like evaluate how we're growing, how we're investing in our communities, how we're investing in things like transit so that we can get emissions out of the air and out of our waterways, right? If we don't stop to look at all of those things just because people get mad and they show up to a community meeting to attack a project, then we're always going to be in a Ponzi scheme of development that's just going to hurt our future until Florida says, I give up, and we're out of water, and, you know, we're out of options.
Do you think the our community is educated enough on these issues and, you know, to where they really understand what is happening and what the long-term consequences are? Or do you think there's more that needs to be done sort of in that education sphere?
This is my favorite part of Florida, is that, like, I have so many Republican friends, so many MPAs, so many people that refuse to vote because they're so jaded, that all understand the intersectionality of money and politics and how we're getting screwed. It's like a unifying conversation. And so, like, yeah, I dabble in, like, the partisan politics, but I'm able to have more human conversations with anyone on any part of the aisle, because when you talk about how capitalism has fed into our ability or lack of ability to self-govern, everyone feels it. They might not say it just like that. They might say, I don't know why I can't afford to feed my kids, but I'm seeing immigrants being put up in like 5-star hotels in New York. I'm mad about that. That's why I'm mad about immigrants. And then I can say, well, you know, $430 million of your money that's supposed to help you and your kids get out of your flooded home from FEMA is going to a giant concentration camp in the Everglades. And then they say, like, I never thought of it like that. And it's like, I think we think of voters as like uneducated, but I think it's really because what people choose to talk about when they're taking a poll or when they're having conversations about politics. It's not what you see in the headlines or by the pundits and how they're communicating it. It's like, I can't afford health care, but I see immigrants getting treated in the emergency room, and then we're footing the bill with our taxes, or it's communicated in a different way. And we write them off as like, well, they're uneducated and they don't really understand but at the end of the day, they still can't afford to get their kid like a hearing aid or like, insulin. And so we have to break through. The reason why I'm involved in so many issue-based campaigns and so many candidates and nonprofits that refuse to just play into the same conversation about donor stewardship and then try to take what they're monitored to say and communicate something to the public. The reason why I'm involved with all these different things is that the best way to break through the noise is to like talk to people where they're at emotionally and spiritually. Some people, because of how divided we are, we're not going to be able to do that. Like both my parents are like extremely MAGA, like QAnon.
Oof.
Mm-hmm. My mom believes that like fluoride is making us dumber, and she does not want to brush her teeth. Like gone, right? And so like that is we're being robbed of our relationships because of misinformation online. But once you've gone too far, we can't spend a ton of time trying to pull those people back in because they're gone, right? And so where we can make inroads is on the people who are frustrated but want to do something about it on both sides. And this is the best opportunity to do that.
I love it. Well, one thing you've already spoken really passionately about is climate and the environment. And can you talk about your way into this issue, quote unquote? There's many issues within climate change and the environment. But yeah, talk about your journey into caring about this.
Yeah, I love telling this story, even though it's a little graphic, because when I was 21 or 22, I suffered from like extreme depression because that actually was around the time I started learning about climate change. And no one in my circle wanted to talk about it. No one really now I feel bad for kids that are getting cell phones at a young age and immediately seeing like dying coral reefs and stuff like that, because I was being exposed to that in my early days in college. But then I wasn't seeing anyone like responding to it in my friend groups. So I actually started inflicting self-harm at that time. And I was like so past the point of depressed. But then something occurred to me when I was like actually really ready to take my own life, that like, okay, have I done everything I can to address the issues that are causing the depression? And when I thought about how active or inactive I was on certain issues, I realized like, well, maybe before I take the cheat code out, why don't I invest in doing everything possible to like feel like I'm actually changing some of the things that are causing that depression, right? And so that's when I started texting people in my phone who I thought had their stuff together.
Yeah.
And I met some environmental friends that were organizing through Ideas for Us. I don't know if you guys know Chris Castro, the former director of sustainability for the city of Orlando. We were just college kids at the time before he got his job. And that's where we created Ideas for Us and Fleet Farming, two climate organizations here. And, I just thought, I'm just going to work until my hands fall off. Like, I'm just going to teach people how to grow food and do climate projects and plant trees and do all these fun projects to make me feel better. But in the 2020 election, I realized Florida is going in a direction I don't agree with, and I can sit and plant trees the rest of my life and be happy. We became an international organization. We started doing projects in Ghana and Nepal.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
Yeah, we grew so quickly at such a young age, but I said I have to get into politics or else I'm going to still feel stunted. And that's when I ran Nicole Wilson and Kelly Simron's campaign and Carlos Guillermo Smith.
Well, first of all, thank you for being so candid that I imagine that's, even if it's been a while, it's still not easy to talk about. So thank you for being honest. And I'm so sorry you had to deal with that. But what about, like, you talked about seeing coral reefs, like, do you feel like at that age you were inundated with these images specifically of climate as opposed to anything else in the ether that could come across our cell phones and be in front of our face?
I'm so glad you asked this, because I just had the Stephanie Vanos on my podcast, and we talked about like tech in schools and the harm of tech in schools. And I think when you bring up climate change and the exposure of climate change to kids, immediately people talk about like the algorithm and how targeted it is, and how you have to pay attention to like how you use social media. I didn't have a cell phone back then, but I was an environmental science major at UCF, and the reason why I was so depressed, and I think we really need to hear the youth with this conversation, is that our systems have gotten so out of control that things are so much worse than what is mass communicated, that the feeling of like the ground you stand on being taken out from under you at a young age, not given the safety net to be able to communicate to a child, this is what we're doing about it, and this is hope.
Yeah.
I can't even wholeheartedly do that to bring confidence to adults right now.
Right.
And to be that young and to have that gravity of how bad things are exposed to a child, people would rather fight it than grapple with communicating it. And for years, I've felt like I'm in a vacuum of information that other people, I think, know, but they don't want to talk about. And now, for the first time in the last 5 years, I think it's become so mainstream that now all these other people are starting to say, well, am I going to have kids? Or am I going to invest in a house? Am I near a place that is exposed to sea level rise? We're having conversations, and our economy is being impacted by this. Our education's being impacted by this. Wars overseas are happening because of the energy crisis and, frankly, the water crisis. They don't want to talk about the fact that many Middle Eastern places have the most severe drought that they've ever experienced in the last 50 years. And so it's all intersectional, and so many decisions are being made. I think when I was a kid, I thought the adults got it. The adults got it. Like, it sounds bad,
Yeah.
but I know somebody really, really smart has the wheel and is like turning us in the right direction, right? And it only got worse when I got into government.
Yeah.
And I realized that like systems they're so flawed because they've been developed by humans that have had the economy as a driving force, that they haven't been able to calibrate for quality of life and for survival. They've just looked at, GDP and economic returns as like the leading force in how we govern.
Absolutely. Steph, hearing the phrase "adults in the room," just not that you're the adult in the room, though I think of you as a very
Wow, I really feel old right now.
competent adult. But I don't know. How do you feel in government? Like, oh my God, these people around me. Not that you have to name names, though. I always want you to name names. But yeah, what do you feel like serving in government and feeling like whether people around you, and not even necessarily at OCPS, but like, Orange County at large, you interact with a lot of folks. Like, how do you think about that?
Well, I think one thing you said that I really resonated with me was there's just sort of like an institutional desire to kind of keep doing things the way that they've always been done, or like maybe make a little tweak here, a little tweak there. But it sometimes, I think, is hard to break through that. And if you, like, to your point, like if you've always considered the economy and economic returns to be important, and I partially do understand that. And especially as we look at what people are talking about, they're talking about affordability. Like, they're talking about their ability to, have the financial security to have the kind of life that they need. So I understand why that is part of the equation. But I think to your point, a lot of the environmental issues are sort of like longer term issues, and they're sort of easier, I think, for people to sort of put off for in the future. Just keep doing what we're doing, and like we'll figure that out. The adult in the room will like figure that out in 10 or 20 or 40 or 50 years from now. But we're at the point where like we can no longer wait. And so one of the things I'm thinking about is if you were like running for mayor of a large city, let's just say, or even
I'd like to make an announcement.
breaking news on extracurricular, or even governor of a state. Like how would you talk about this? And what is sort of your vision for how you would like to frame sort of environmental climate change issues in a way that like we can take action now and kind of overcome the institutional refusal to sort of like make a big change?
Well, I always think about millennials, younger millennials and Gen Z and then Gen X getting into government. It like thrills me and excites me because when I got in 2020, I realized like literally the county was still planning on large paper maps. They were rolling up paper maps,
Wow.
putting them on their shoulder and walking them down the hallway to plan. Okay. And it wasn't until COVID forced them to start working at home that they all started to like actually digitize and do more like effective meetings online. And I still don't think they've perfected being able to handle a day full of meetings and still being productive. Like I think that it's caused a lot of opportunity. Like for example, every single Board of County Commission meeting, they had binders that they printed for each office. So there's like 7 offices, they would print 3 every single 2 weeks, this huge on paper. It's like a ream and a half of paper, 3 per office, 1 for your senior aide, 1 for your legislative aide, 1 for the commissioner. Wow. And it's not until this year that they digitize that. Okay.
Interesting. Wow.
So it's like, you just need a basic resiliency plan. We're not even there yet, you know, and we're making strides. You know, we hired a sustainability and resiliency officer, and then Doge at Florida, you know, came, FAFO, whatever, came and said anything that has to do with climate needs to be gutted. So we had to completely change the role of the Sustainability and Resiliency Office and change the title and just call it the Resiliency Office. And I'm pretty sure that's not going to be something that's allowed soon. And so like we're trying to make just very basic steps still. But again, to go back to that like 20-year-old me that was taking like my first like zoology class, whatever class it was, and I was learning that like so many species of crustaceans can't even form their shells to the healthiest ability, like not even 20% formation because of how acidic our waterways are. And at 21, I'm like, how has it gotten this bad? You know, or that certain species of plants have adapted to move their way up a mountain, but it's getting so hot that they can't even survive on the tip of the mountain anymore. And now they're just like moving up to nothing and they're going extinct because lower on the mountain it's getting so hot they just can't survive anymore. It's called adaptation. So like behavioral changes in how you communicate what's happening around us is not coming into our school systems, coming into our government fast enough for us to be able to write policy to mitigate that. We're still having fights over like putting a toll road through a forest. It sounds like it's just a territory fight, right? But it's actually that we have the Florida Wildlife Corridor has already shrunk by like 60%.
Wow.
We don't have enough passage for healthy migration, which is why we literally only have 200 panthers left in Florida. In fact, they're so related as cousins that they can't even procreate because they're too genetically similar. So like it's land use decisions and how we communicate them. I just went to a mayoral forum today. no one explained that the toll road is more than just we need to get cars off in Narcoosseee so people can get home to their family in time. But how they explained it was very much from a transportation and a fiscal responsibility way, and not from a way where if we connect a toll road through our conservation lands, we're going to open up the profitability and connectivity with our tax dollars for more sprawl, which is going to kill more land and suck up more water and hurt our future and create deficits for our future kids. And kids know that our government is making decisions that's taking the floor out from under our future. And we say, oh, it's social media that's making them suicidal. That's what it is. It's like you're forgetting that kids are smarter than their parents and their grandparents were at their age because they have the world in their fingertips, and they're realizing that we have been kind of robbing their ability to make the same decisions that our grandparents were able to make without having those conversations as to what we're going to do about it. And it's really unfortunate because we want to blame something on its face. We don't want to look deeper and look at our society as a whole and say, how do we address this? Mm-hmm. You know, I have little kids that like get it way smarter than I ever was. Mm-hmm. And yet we're not taking the time to say like, how, I mean, you know, you're in education. These poor kids. I really do feel like we need to have young people in government.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and I do want to talk more about that, but one thing we were discussing before we started recording is how we are failing our students in terms of educating them formally. Like they might, to your point, be smarter and understand what's going on, but Florida's education system is really robbing them of understanding what's really happening. Can you speak more into that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So most kids nowadays understand climate change and they understand biodiversity loss at an age that is unfathomable for even just like my grandmother's generation, right? They understand the complexities of racism and the complexities of, how, I mean, a lot of kids are denying wanting access to social media now. There's actually like a rejection because they understand how it's impacting them. But where do we give students an opportunity to like actually have a handle on their future, right? To me, if I were to be mayor, I would love to have like an internship from high school integrated into every single department. I have a friend who lives in Finland who obviously they have like universal health care and like free tuition, whatever.
Must be nice.
But they also have these programs where if they want to go and get like specialized like master's degrees, et cetera, they can sign on with the government and do 5 years worth of work within the government and have those specialized degrees completely covered. Even if it's not in succession, like 5 full years in, you can go and do 2 years and have a baby, then come back in a few years. And like your payment is completely just eradicated, right? You don't owe anything. It creates this huge incentive for people to get into government at a super young age, do their time, get their degrees, and then move on to something else, not crippled in debt.
Yeah.
Right?
I love that. I did not know that. That's great.
It's so cool. And like, I don't know why we're not thinking in that way. It almost feels like those that are governing us are getting older and older and older and older, and like we're not trying to build a bench. I can speak for myself in government. There are so many folks that have been there for 30 years who are the heads of departments who do not want an intern. They don't want to share any of their generational knowledge, and they actually feel more powerful than the mayor, because they've seen mayors come and go. Mm-hmm. So if a mayor comes in and says, I want to do this amazing change, maybe create like a reforestation program in all of our easements or whatever, some of these staff members, and it's not all of them, but many are like so stuck in the way they've always done it that they create like purposeful obstacles even for the mayor.
We're laughing because this is a discussion Steph and I have kind of regularly. But we need to do an episode about this, like institutions versus the elected officials, and how they can often be at odds with each other. And I think if people understood really like how that dynamic was playing out, they would be very frustrated and would have a better understanding of why things happen the way they happen. But that's a little bit of a tangent. But absolutely, I'm glad you articulated that. Mm-hmm. Could you see yourself running for something someday?
Oh yeah,
I love it.
100%.
That's great.
I mean, I'm running all the commissioners first so I can make my cabinet, and then I want to run for mayor. I tell people all the time, I want to run for Orange County mayor. It's just that, it comes down to building. I realize, like, if I were to become a mayor today, the systems are so broken. And like you said, we have like a need for education and foundation building that I don't think I would be up against hundreds of millions of dollars from the tourism industry that has a vested interest in us putting $600,000 homes in the wildlife corridor because that's more, revenue coming into the parks. From the obviously mega developers who have sent armies of people up to Tallahassee to lobby for egregious land use bills that tie up home rule and completely remove any responsibility that they have of killing wetlands and growing irresponsibly that could flood out communities of color, for example. I would be up against so much dirty money that has basically run Florida since before I was even born, that, right now I'm doing a lot of organizing with the hope that I can enlighten people, bring some of my friends into a place where they're inspired to get involved. And we've seen with like the Democratic Party 10 years ago, 5 years ago compared to now, the foundation is building. So can we do that for the Progressive Caucus? Can we even do that for the Republicans? There's a lot of Republican organizations that care about the rural boundary, that care about flooding and, biodiversity, but they don't know how to go up against their own party and their own money influencing their own system. And so I'm on calls almost every day with people across the aisle to try and help build and create this culture where everyone is paying attention, even if it's to the thing that they're most interested in, and finding a path to organizing around it. And then if I ever run, I hope that those systems will have such a strong foundation that we could like all do it together.
I love that.
And I think one of the things that when I think about you running for office, one of the things, your true gifts, besides being passionate and extremely hard worker and seem to be just have higher energy levels than most other people I know, you are really a skilled communicator. I think you talk about things in a way that that people understand. You break it down. I think you are clearly passionate about topics, but I do feel like when you talk, it's based in like evidence and facts, and you can show like I'm saying this because of this, and this is what the research shows here, which I think is incredibly important. But you do have a way, I think, of just speaking clearly and communicating, and to your point of really getting to the issues that people care about, so that you can cross those, like not just party lines, but maybe like preconceived notions about that people have.
Well, I also feel more comfortable with the everyday person who's like paycheck to paycheck than I ever do at like a fancy gala or a ribbon cutting or whatever, which I think would, and it doesn't have to be me. Like when I think of like running for office, Kelly Semrad's wins are like my wins. Like it's a weird dynamic because I kind of look at her as like my daughter, but she's older than me. So like I will run anyone who aligns with all of those issues unapologetically. I will pull my full self into it. And whether I'm running or someone else's, I still see it as like my win. Like I still hold it as like a sense of pride, because all the thing that motivates me to put my feet on the ground every single day are like our ecosystems, animals, our children's future, having access to clean water. Like that's what drives me when I'm on my email till 10 o'clock at night. But most importantly, why I feel like I would want to run specifically is because I'm really, really good at handling multiple systems and I'm like really good at sending emails in a Zoom link and like follow through. I've never seen Jerry Demings with a laptop. Ever. Literally ever. I think he has an email. But like, if I were to be mayor, it would not be like I have a staff and I just like put it on my staff. And then I go to all the places where like a face is needed, right? It's going to be like, I'm in the trench. You're going to see me everywhere. You're going to be annoyed with how much you see me. I'm going to be at every back to school event, you know, every single diaper distribution, I'm going to give my life to the most vulnerable in the community. And that's something that Democrat, Republican, NPA, everyone's hungry for, because it feels like someone like Jerry Demings, who lives in a like high fancy gated community, like that you barely ever see him like in the trenches with people. There's like an elite, and then there's us. And it's like, if I'm struggling, if I'm in pain, if I can't feed my kids, regardless of on the political spectrum, if I don't see you in these trenches with me, feeling that pain with people like me, serving food to the homeless because you know that our populations have doubled, and not using the talking lines of like the special interests that are feeding us like data to say everything's great, but you're actually going to these places and feeding people. I'm not a religious person, but like it's literally God's way, whatever God you believe in. If you're not doing that, then it creates an othering of the people who are jaded and turned off by politics. So if I run a mayoral candidate or if I run for office, it's going to be like a relentless accessibility to your elected leaders.
I love it. And what are you thinking of right now? I know what you're thinking of.
No, you actually, because I don't know what I'm thinking.
The call center commercial.
Oh wait, which commercial are you talking about? See, I did not know.
So when you were talking about just being in the trenches and not just kind of assigning work out, I was Mayor Mamdani.
Oh yeah, okay.
Put, I don't know if you saw the commercial where he goes to work in the call center, like for the city. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I watch all of his stuff. I'm addicted.
Okay. And where he's like learning from the person of like, okay, listening in and how do you respond, and then he takes a call on his own and he's just like, oh, hi, I'm here to help you, and help someone. And I think there is a really important piece to that of like understanding what real people are dealing with, and even the people who like work for you in the government, like what is that job, like what are they doing, what are they doing every day, and what are the issues that everyday people are facing. I think it is incredibly important.
It's just an extra little bit of like sacrifice that I think we need to also be humble and communicate, right? Like, so like Rep. Eskamani, she's everywhere. Everybody talks about she's everywhere. I want more people to be everywhere. It's really, really scary to be everywhere too. Like, she's gotten death threats. Commissioner Semrat's received death threats. On the third date with my husband, I literally told him, like, I want you to know that the lifestyle that I'm choosing could lead to me probably getting shot or stalked or, and this is just the direction. You have to like have those conversations when you're an elected official, or you have to not show up to every single thing. And it's like more of a risk, right? But there's like a very profound respect that I have for those people that know those risks, like Martin Luther King, and just still showed up and still kept going and still kept marching and still kept having a public presence, even if they couldn't afford that level of security. Because like, to me, I would rather die on the trenches than like hide and feel like my community never sees me anywhere.
I love that passion, but also I do want to articulate the balance that is to be able to live and not saying you're saying something differently, but to be able to live a normal human life. Like I think, Steph, like you don't miss a lot of events, but certainly there are times where you're like, I need to spend time with my girls. Like they need mom to cook them dinner, or we need to go do these things. And so to be able to be a public official and to be able to still be a whole person, like I don't want, and truly like bless folks like you and Anna who are like, I will be everywhere. But also I want people to run for office who are like, I can have a life a work-life balance. And I don't think you're saying anything differently, but I do want to speak to that because we've spent the last couple episodes talking about how important it is to pay elected officials a real living, thriving wage because we need good people to run for office and want to take those jobs. And I think another aspect is it like you should be able to be a normal human being and be able to have a family and enjoy your family life and not give like the 120%. And like, again, grateful for those folks who do, but there is still a balance. I just want to say that.
100%. What I'm saying is many of the people who are in elected service as of right now are not even giving 90, 70%. So what I'm saying is that, yes, there's definitely a balance, 100%. We're not even really, and when I say we, I mean like Democrats or people in elected office or candidates even, aren't even using the free tools we have to communicate to the masses effectively. Like, you know it. You go on your, you don't always have like perfect lighting or like you just came from a run.
Or like hair done.
And your ponytail is like on the side of your head and you're like, hey guys, I got to talk to you about this voucher system. But like that 2 minutes you took resonated with thousands of people who saw it. It was shared. People learned something. There's definitely a balance where like, and as a campaign manager, I've had to be mostly a therapist.
I bet.
Right?
Yeah.
Where like when you're having a breakdown, it's like, I'm clearing your schedule. I don't care what you say.
Yeah.
You need your day off today.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of my job, is making sure that you're not pushing the limits of your physical capacity. But at the same time, you don't need to be on an Escamani level and go to every single thing you're invited to. You can say, I need my blocks, but still be able to say, we have an agenda coming out on Tuesday, so I'm going to do 3 TikTok videos breaking down these top hot button issues in one sitting and then schedule them so that I can make sure people are seeing these messages and getting it in my newsletter as well. We have so many free tools that are not utilized across the board in elected spaces, and now I think the next generation of voters are going to expect it. And if you go radio silent most of the year in between your campaigns, go and look at some of the elected officials' social media. Many of those that have been in power for a long time have like no presence.
Yeah.
I actually have noticed that.
They're missing out on talking to people and making sure people feel heard. It's a tool that if you're not using that, I'm suspicious who you're opening your door to and who you're having meetings with and who you're listening to the most.
So interesting. And I think the communication piece and the accessibility piece, we talked about before, sometimes it is communicating, what's going on. And sometimes it's like you are communicating, you want to respond. There's a decision that's happened, like people aren't happy with it. And I think sometimes the feeling is like, oh, I just don't want to say anything about it. I'm afraid I'm going to step into something. But really, like, people just want to hear. I feel like people just want to hear about it, even if you're not necessarily communicating good news or happy news. I do think it's important to communicate what's happening, because I think, to what you said, it's people want to understand what is happening in government, but they don't have the time to sit through a 2, 3, 4, 6 hour board meeting to do it. And they don't even necessarily have time to go back through the recording on YouTube to try to find what you said. But I think just putting that information out there and being willing to feel like, yeah, I know people might be mad at what I'm saying. They might be mad about this decision, but I think kind of having that almost, it's not quite open dialogue because it's a video, but kind of sharing that piece and being open to feedback and responses and like kind of not being afraid of it is really important.
And I believe that you don't always have to respond to everything.
Right.
But for example, the transportation sales tax, everyone's like, why did that fail? Why did that fail? Show me a competent, well-communicated plan outside of we need trains and buses. Show me the areas of congestion, the actual routes that we want to alleviate some of that traffic congestion, and show me the data that would inform how many more bus lanes or bike lanes or whatever it is that you're saying you want to pay for. Tell me the data that would show why that investment would be worth our vote. They literally, I was there, we begged Lynx to come and show us how many routes, what time of day were those routes, and where the areas of congestion were. And on the first go around, they came to Commissioner Wilson's office at like 7:00 the Monday night before the BCC meeting with these maps. And we were like, if we are unclear about this, then that means the public is unclear about this. And if you can't communicate what these routes, you just want a bucket of money just to have a bucket of money to be able to make decisions on the back end when no one's paying attention. Frankly, just for more roads and more lanes. And then put like a pretty sticker of transit on top of it because we like want to live in Europe. But we're never going to get there if we don't have a real plan that's guiding us, right? And great communicators that are able to be excited about communicating it. Democrat or Republican, I will sit down and listen to a plan if it's data informed and it's not cherry picked.
I get that. Yep.
Okay. Speaking about great communication, tell us about your podcast.
Yes. So I have a podcast, not because everybody in the world has a podcast nowadays. And look at us, we're part of a pod family. I have a podcast because ultimately, you guys want to know my real secret?
Please.
I know we're recording, but so right now I want to educate people about candidates and issue-based campaigns. So I'm doing these interviews, I'm getting to know people. But I want to build a little bit of a reputation of being someone who's willing to ask like kind of those hard questions. So I do a little bit of a bait and switch for candidates where I invite them on, I let them talk about like what they want to talk about. And then, I ask about tourism development taxes. I ask about the rural boundary. I ask about things that maybe they weren't necessarily prepared, but were kind of caught off guard. And then, they're kind of put in a situation where they have to answer. But also because politics should be fun, right? So I'm actually planning on doing more live podcasts, doing more like fun campaign related. So how to check your campaign contributions and how to, read a website and really understand what this candidate means. And going live, the week of early voting and inviting different candidates to come impromptu. We're going to start going on Twitch. We're going to start doing these things. I hate social media. Like if it were up to me, I wouldn't have a phone. I love to garden. I would just be in my garden. I've talked to my husband a million times about being able to live on his salary. And unfortunately, we're not able to. But like I would go off grid tomorrow if I had the chance. But that wouldn't really change anything. And a lot of the problems that we're facing will still be the problems that we're facing if we don't make political organizing an exciting, fun, and kind of like scandalous and sexy and attractive thing to talk about. If it's all this, you, and I hate you, and all this kind of stuff, if it's all turmoil and darkness and pain, then we're going to have a greater and greater sit-at-home base of voters that are not going to be inspired to come out. So it's my little corner of the world of trying to inspire people to want to get off the couch and go and vote and become more organized with politics.
I love it. And the name of your podcast?
It's called Organizing to Victory.
Love it.
I stole that name, actually. There was I think it was called Future Leaders Fund or something like that. There was an organization that was here, and they had some Facebook groups called Organizing to Victory. And then when they pulled all the money out of the state, I said, can I have the Facebook groups? Can you make me an admin? Can I keep the name? And they said, yeah. So I kind of stole the name, and I loved the coloring. So I just refined it and told them I would carry on that legacy. So please don't send me a cease and desist.
You asked for permission. It's okay.
Yeah.
And Steph, you were just a guest.
I was. It was so fun. And I love that you said that element that politics should be fun. And when we have conversations about civic engagement or issues we care about or campaigns, I mean, yes, like the data is important. It's super important. And, like we need to talk about the facts and all of that. But like, I do think there is an element to like, it should be fun. Like when I ran for office, it was hard and it was exhausting, but it was also fun. And I think kind of bringing that to all these conversations is important because, that's how you get people engaged and that's how you get people to care. Like they feel part of it. They feel like it's, it's a positive part of their life and that they can make a change. And you show them that pathway, which I love.
And my new favorite part about it is that even today, I went to an event and people knew who I was before I got there. Someone was like, hey, you're Lee. I watch your podcast.
Oh.
most of the time that'll light up your brain and like your ego will go off. You'll be like, ooh. But for me, I'm like, how can I get this person to like organize more? It's become like a little bit of a conduit of like, oh yeah, what topic was it? What are you interested in? Oh, you were interested in this topic? Well, why don't I connect you with the, so it's become like the greatest organizing tool of like trying to politely manipulate someone into doing more in the community. It's like,
Oh, I love that.
I don't know if manipulation is the right word, but it's like, if you're interested in this, I want to get you deeper into it and work towards building it and build more of a base. We'll see.
I mean, I think that's so key. It was funny. There were some students that came to speak at the last school board meeting, and it was about an issue that we actually, made some progress on. But like, to me, it was more about that they came, that they cared enough to show up. They cared enough to make a public comment. And like, the result was that it mattered. Like, they actually were able to have an influence on changing something. And like, to me, that was the victory, is that they will now feel like they can be engaged in, in government in different ways. And they know that now at 16 and 17 versus, never, or 40 and 45 or 30 like you guys. So,
Well, the one thing I absolutely love about you is that being a part of the school board and being so entrenched in like education, right? Like, let's say I do go to run for mayor one day. The immediate thing people are going to say is, well, you don't have kids and you don't have experience with education. Education is like the gateway drug for everybody to pay attention to politics more. People care about their schools, people care about their kids and access, and they will like die for it. Like, the people that show up to a school board meeting, even if they're against an issue that you're passionate about, you can galvanize that energy into something deeper, right? And so you should run for mayor.
Oh, wait a minute. We're talking about you running for mayor. No, this is so fun. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us. Do you have anything else you would like to add?
What I want to add is, it's really, really scary to talk about things like climate change, especially with your kids, especially when it comes to like politics in general is like scary. But I want to invite people to try to look at every single part of your life and figure out how you can take a little bit of impact like off of the planet, right? So if that's lowering your footprint by composting or going vegan for one day a week or whatever it is, do your little steps every day, but also challenge yourself to like read up on something you don't know or talk to somebody who might be either really passionate or really against that subject to kind of exercise that muscle and how to talk about it. Mm-hmm. The only way we're going to be able to combat it is if it's less taboo. And so I want to implore everyone to please get excited about talking about some really hard themes and try to lessen your impact on the planet every day in your own little way.
I love that. Little steps, I think, are so important and underrated. Big fan of composting here. And it is fun to like, oh, how full is my bucket this week? How much was I able to put in there? It's kind of like a game.
Oh, it's so fun. And, I find it to be another really great way to bridge a gap. I debated on Fox 35, like a bunch of Republicans. They had me on like a recurring segment to do like political analysis after the debates in 2024.
That's really cool, by the way.
I loved it. I didn't know I would actually be good at it. But the Republican guests that they had on after every single meeting, except for one guy was like really kind of out there, but they would say like, your stances on the environment were like, they hit so hard for me. Like, I'd love to get lunch and talk deeper about it. And I'm like, yeah, we might disagree on immigration, but when you start to show the climate lens behind that issue, then they start to really understand. I just want to implore everybody to talk to that MAGA uncle and see if you can talk about fishing. Maybe you can talk about fish kills. Maybe you can get to a vulnerable place where you can talk to him about how climate change is impacting something he loves, and then you can help educate him a little bit more.
I love that.
I love talking about feelings, so I'm all for it. Well, thank you so much for coming on the pod today.
Thank you.
And yeah, we appreciate it. Steph, final words?
Again, just thank you so much. This was so fun. Okay, I'm going to ask one more question. I know we're ending, but I'm going to steal a question from you and ask, how do you rest and recharge? Because I want to uplift that this is a very important thing we should all be thinking about.
Oh, cool. Yeah. How do I rest and recharge? Oh, my goodness. I love gardening. I love letting the earth do what it's got to do. And I'm just like a happy little facilitator. So I have an urban farm and I have chickens and the whole 9 yards. And, you know, nothing is, so like I said, I'm not religious, but nothing is more like spiritually connected to me than taking like a propagation, putting it in the ground, thinking it's dead, walking away for a few months and coming back and seeing like this beautiful bloom. And that's like something that I can't control, that is profound and is accelerating without me needing to necessarily influence it, because that's what nature does. It doesn't need humans. We are nature. Nature is not something we can control. And that is my reality check of like, I'm just a little pawn on this planet, just needing to steward more of these relationships. And so gardening is like my reminder, like why we're here.
That was beautiful.
I love it.
Yeah. Put a seed in the ground. It'll make you feel, which I guess that's what having kids is, but that's the closest thing that I have
I love that.
to having children, is like bringing life into the world through gardening.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you again. This was a great conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.